Wow, got a great show today, Lukey. Yes, for everybody that's tuned into the podcast, it's a lot about xenoestrogens. Yes, it means that molecule can act as an estrogen, more or less. It can be broken down to act as an estrogen, and so they're called xenoestrogens. Uh, and never not, but always part of promoting neoplastic growth. Okay. Neoplasm just is tissue and material beyond the economy, which should be there. Okay. So you've got a lot of strange chemicals and things just like this, and mycotoxin especially, we talk a bit about in our podcast today, that you tune into, and it mimics estrogen. So, you're going to hear the word xenoestrogen, okay? And that, like what we started to say, is that this is what's fueling the growth of element that's there, and these estrogenic types of receptor, and is very positive to neoplasm, okay? So you're looking at what's reported more or less where things are good news, of course. You've got various things going on under a microscope where you're looking at things in the blood. And could anybody have seen blood more recent that doesn't have the synthetic double-layered lipid vesicles there in the blood? And beforehand, those weren't there. And is this sort of something which is a biowarfare? None, of course, today could show that the blood is clean. And so very small things, if somebody knows how to do these things, you've got like tobacco leaves that you could put into water, and then like a teaspoon into 6 ounces of water that's warm and that's diffused, and then you strain that tobacco out, put a little hydrogen in there, squeeze a little bit of lemon in there. Hydrogen is just something sweet, and squeeze a bit of lemon in there, and that is something which can get rid of fungus. Okay, because is fungus bacteria? Yes, it is. It's a stage of the lifecolloid in a lifecolloid's life cycle. So if you just go after a bacterial cell wall, which antibiotics do, does that get rid of fungus? No. Okay. So we've got to go more into lifecolloid, and there's something which we could talk just a little bit about today to get some insight, because just a drop of that water that we're just talking about completely dissolves all artifact and everything underneath it. So you've got things which act as natural pacifier, and a natural pacifier is a substance which is a blood-borne inhibitor, which blocks and stops the expression of double spore, having transmutated, pleomorphed into fermentive types of lifecolloid, which you want to guard against that not really being in your blood, and your blood being clean. Okay, so otherwise, it's really jump cell rejuvenation. Have you heard about this? It's a cleanse, and it's definitely that otherwise there's a disrupted type of cell signaling that could have been going on. But you could reduce the neoplastic condition that is about the terrain and improve everything so that, you're having a long life. Otherwise, you've got a cell proliferation in neoplasm, and that could have been a slow growth where meninges are and things like this. All right. Meninges are like the covering of the brain and tissue where that is. So in neoplastic condition, it can be truly kicked off more certain, because you've got lots of cocktails. And a cocktail is really so many things that you don't even know what's going on and what is the cause of what after you have a cocktail, you see. So those cocktails truly can be just disastrous overall. And is there any investigation where somebody's given something for your heart or something like as a drug, And how does that impact everything if you've got cystic fibrosis? No, it hasn't been looked at. Okay. So you've got cocktail treatments that are looking at mood and all sorts of things and not having any idea that this is metabolic. And so, wrong approach. But anyway, you've got heart drugs that, cause all sorts of other conditions and things. You've got psychiatrics, which those drugs also cause a whole range of other conditions and things. And so then you've got other drugs to stop those conditions, like diarrhea, for instance, you see, which lots of these drugs create because it impacts the pancreas, so it can't function as well. Drugs that stop diarrhea afterward, it's like, oh my God, is this like what is the answer? No, it isn't. It's just something patching, but that's wrong approach. So xenoestrogens really include sort of a whole range of things. It's like microplastic particle, and lots of microplastic particles showing up in all sorts of food, like even carrot and things, you see? So because of how those things are grown today. So what's the reason that you've got strange artifact, that shows up where you're just looking at injectables, for instance? Where did that material come from? And what standard or safety procedures existing to cause people to be felt that something is what it's supposed to be versus there are things which showing up, which is strange artifact, where injectables are. Is that true? Have you looked into this? You've got all these biphenyl types of molecules that are estrogenic. And where did that come from? Plastics. You've got plastic product. You've got all these personal care product that has this in it. And when you've got to consider pesticide and insecticide and fertilizer and things that's been put where food is, and where's that where the water is. And do these lead you to have had more neoplastic development where things are? And what's really being looked at where toxin is existing? So could you say that it's a predatorial type of conflicted interest where something constructive like fraud has gone on, and all of that's getting done under some colour of law, and to have acted somewhere is a coercive controller doing things to promote this, which doesn't have any mutual interest. Something conflicted exists about that. So it's coercive violence weaponized using third parties as institutions that target beloved where they are, where the world is. Would you say that's not gone on? Personally, most people looking at that can see that's gone on, and victims are under a legal name fraud. That is a kill box. So someone who's acted coercive as a controller, where you're looking at various lone rangers in each nation, they're made to be like a lone ranger, and then you've got a gold finger. Yeah, okay. So what's that? Is this all sort of just something the same? If it happens somewhere there, is it happening everywhere? You've got no due diligence done because nobody saw any claim, and using law enforcement and courts to weaponize and layers of additionalness where things are. Has anybody out there looked at live blood, living blood? Why not? And for the matter of the law, who's read the Constitution? So, just like any field, of course, what would be a reason why you don't have clean blood, you see? And the beginning of 2023, more or less, pretty sure lots of colleagues would say that it's rare that they've seen anyone with any clean blood. And is that sort of like biowarfare artifact? That's these double lipids and, vesicles, which are showing up with all this granulated material that's within it. And what is that? All of it. Is that sort of inhibiting proper frequencies where the cell is an alignment that you and we have to the Schumann resonance? And isn't the resonance supposed to follow what it would, like at night? You're supposed to have a proper resonance. And if you impact the resonance so that it's not a Schumann resonance, how does that impact everybody below where that is, you see? So eye awareness evermore is how your ongoing having adenosine triphosphate, which is your energy molecule, and that's being synthesized, and it's a flow of proton to bind and cause a spinning of rotor, which turns central rods as stator. In the membrane, you need ATP to get something done and other places. And you see these rotors that are turning in a central rod, which is held steady and by the stator. And then you've got adenosine diphosphate, which is just two phosphate molecules, being converted back with another phosphate molecule to adenosine triphosphate, which is energy. Okay. So you've got these things going on. And in empathics, where advice is anybody's to survive what narcissistic sort of attack goes on, where somebody has an integrated shadow complex versus something which is just regular. And so you more are in your soul more sovereign and untouchable. Okay. So looking where this is, where the work is immediate, of course, you're capable to have a scientific endeavour evermore presented to you here. And let's just, for a focus, a bit on xenoestrogen, you see, yeah? Strange estrogens and neoplasm, and having these things heal up by you looking into Jubb cell rejuvenation. So otherwise you've got certain, no question, you've got a lot of predatory, conflicted interest, definitely. Look at who funds a journal, yes. And, what are they selling, right? And so there's a lot of predatory, conflicted interest and constructive fraud, all done under the colour of law, acted coercive by some coercive controller. And now after that, you've got is there any mutual interest? Is there any real due diligence done by what you're looking at? And how come you haven't looked at living blood? Why not? So coercive violence is a weaponizedness where third-party institutions target beloved, of course, and it's like victimizedness. And nobody's going to say that didn't happen under legal name fraud, a matter of being a kill box. So it's just looking at clean blood. And where is that, and how come lots of these professional people that's looking haven't seen clean blood? Is that a biowarfare where artifact is? That's inhibiting sort of proper frequency, no longer alignment, more where your Schumann resonance is, like we're talking about. So if you're looking into this work, of course, you really focusing even more to be able to gain a proper approach, yes. So Jubb cell rejuvenation is you maybe picking up a copy of Jubb's Little Red Book, Volume 1, 2, and 3, and reading through this to start to have some more insight into other things. But that's on Amazon. So Jubb cell rejuvenation and Secrets of an Alkaline Body, that's put out by Atlantic Books. That's fantastic. Should be picking up copies of this. So for a long while, of course, Jubb cell rejuvenation and whole brain functioning is really most what the work that we've done, which is using your vestibular sense to have logic more, and maybe that's something you could look into. So, if you really are gaining some insight more, and you're looking to see what's going on, how come you haven't looked at fungus? Oh, fungus? Yeah. Mold? Yeah. They're all stages of bacteria. and Lifecolloid. There's a colloid of life cycle. So where fungus is in the intestine, what you're going to say that that's not going to be found in the blood? Yes, it is. Would you consider that the condition of meningitis and all sorts of things that could have gone on where tissue became compromised isn't because then fungus is left there? The condition of the nerve cell in your body really is subject to the excrement of these non-ecological life colloid. And how did they get there? Because the tissue itself and the terrain isn't corrected like it can be, all right? So looking under the microscope and having a proper observation, and when you didn't do that, don't tell me that you've got any science in front of you. Zero. Because you're missing too many things, all right? So better start looking under the microscope and looking to see if you've got fungus in your blood. So you've got a gut-brain connection. If you mind the gut, you can gut the mind, and the two are related. So there's no question about it, but Lifecolloid microbe, where certain fungus is, and in the blood, it certainly shows up where anybody would have had any development of any meningiomas of the brain or multiple sclerosis type of symptoms. And it's a precise relation. So the connection of the gut-brain axis and your gut-derived substance, mycotoxin, okay? We're talking about how this influences your brain health. You know, and I'm a neurologist, talk a lot about the brain, but just want you to know that your toes, your feet, everything is related. So Jubb's research method is a randomized study, yes, as a research method, and it uses to infer cause and effect where you're provided with more preliminary evidence of how gut life colloid certain it is showing up in the terrain within the body and lacking proper bloodborne inhibitor where the blood is. So those are things which is not really being broken down and not caused to form. Otherwise, you've got fungus in the blood. And how does strange estrogens, xenoestrogens impact all of that to cause yeast? Okay. So life colloid, which we're talking about, all these organisms are life colloid, including a red blood corpuscle, which is in the cell. It's a red blood corpuscle, but you do have what you've got immune cells and things, and then platelet things where the blood is. And it's more than just a gas transporter, far more, where you look into this work. So it's ecological that the terrain is to be proper, otherwise you've got, expressed conditions where some lacked inhibition is to fermentive life colloid to have formed in the blood is. And so is the blood got its proper South positive in itself? No, it doesn't. Why? Because it's more alkaline than it should be. Does the tissue have more alkaline element or more acid? It has way more acid typically when it should. And so a disparity exists between the blood and the inside of the cell. And you've got a sticking zone right there, which you shouldn't have. It should be more Teflon, but not with Teflon, of course, because that's dangerous. But life colloid in a poor terrain pleomorph into bacteria, mold, fungus, and yeast, and it's really easily seen under the microscopic work. And why haven't you done that? Why didn't you look? You're going to say that you don't have fungus in your blood? I'm going to say you do. And maybe you should follow up cell rejuvenation to start to help clear some of that up. So meningioma, pathogenesis, and specific sort of metabolite. Yeah, it's specific. You've got specific metabolite there in the tissue, and that's more found today, well and truly, okay? So it's definite. If your blood's got fungus in it, would you expect the tissue of your body probably to have that as well? If you've got stone and all fluids has to flow over that, and it's all full of mold, fungus, and yeast, and it's in your pancreas, you think that's going to impact the tissue of your thyroid and everything else? Yes, it is. So it's definite. You've got the storage of artifact. You've got blood not kept at a proper temperature, and when it's not, what happens? It loses its potassium. It can't hold it. You have a quanta that's existing at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. And so you've got this storage of artifact and synthetic lifecolloid where the blood is, and it's really needing to be dissolved. How do you do that? You do it with micro voltage. Ever heard about that? So the tobacco leaves, the story just a little about, you soaked a little bit in some fresh water and you drank just a little bit of that, and suddenly there wasn't any more fungus in the blood. It got cleared up. So the makeup where anything is, where neoplasm is, you're not going to tell me that fungus isn't part of that. It is. So since the 1970s late, of course, it's just for me to have very distinct realizedness how the gut, the blood, and the surrounding environment typically really are, impacted. And so you've got certain diseases like multiple sclerosis and benign types of meningococcal types of life colloid seen in the tissue where the gut and the brain is, and in the blood. So it's circumstance that really needs to, be looked at more, right? So the effect of life colloid where you've got certain mucoid toxin, and most people on mucus diet. Ooh, yeah, that's right. Life food is a non-mucus diet. So it's appearing ever more. Otherwise, you've got pleomorphism going on, and you've got class 2 types of fungus. You've got mucorracemiosis as a family, and you've also got streptococcinisia as a family, and one makes vascular organs and the other makes more tissue, like, striated tissue and things. And so these life colloid all are what your tissue would break down into. So your tissue breaks down into mold, fungus, and yeast. Your tissue breaks down into mold, fungus, and yeast. Your tissue can break down into parasite. So none of that's got to be found on the outside. So it's mycotoxin, which is the excrement of those life colloid, using your body as its sewer. So fungi and meningiomas and research into the life colloid that's existing there and the body fungal community, nobody's going to say that meningioma doesn't have that within itself. So just research method, randomly getting a random selection, and having looked at this and seeing the advantage of that observation and having deductive reasoning. You find a heart in somebody, do you have to look inside somebody else? No. You found a heart inside somebody. You don't have to have a look inside everybody. That's a bit dumb. Okay. So it's associatedness where you've got a non-ecological poor terrain. You've got life colloid expressed because of it. And you've got life colloid related family of tissue that aggregate, fuse, and differentiate, and do not use mitotic cell division at all. But this process, aggregating, fusing, and differentiating. Thank you. So it becomes oxalobacteria type of, and you've got certain sort of increased risks of meningioma and things. You've got perfectly deducted mycotoxins seen there in the blood, and it's mediated at a higher level of metabolite. And so you've got a whole bunch of things like 1-linoleoglycerol, which can be found when you tuck into bacon and eggs in the morning. Couldn't help yourself. It was just given. Millions of dollars spent to get some bacon and eggs for you. Oh my God. You see, how much money is spent? It's enormous to end up so that you just got a bit of bacon and egg on your plate. And you broke your breakfast. You break your fast then. Did you have a fast? No. None. You probably haven't even defecated and you're starting to eat. So flesh food alongside that fat in combo with the enzyme-resistant carbohydrate, you're not going to tell me that that's not going to raise somatostatin. It does. It shuts your stomach down and your pancreas, which it does. So that's called dead food, certainly. And it raises somatostatin. It shuts the stomach down, the pancreas activity down, and it causes fungus to arise in the blood. And from rancid fat, all omega-3, just terrible because it's oxidized. Omega-6 fat's oxidized. And your brain and your body just cannot handle that. So, a bit stupid looking at other things, very. Disease, a disruption to the ease you're ordinarily feeling, and the health that you have is related to the inflammation and the metabolic dysfunction. It's usually a metabolic disorder, not a neurotransmitter disorder. So it's the influence of the production and the breakdown of that metabolite, like what we were just talking about. So your dead food is really showing where this work is and how your diet of flesh, which could have been toxic, no question, and essential fats toxic, like the linoleic acid that we just talked about. And now you've got a very bad diet of flesh and no rest. And so the diet is determinant of that serum fatty acid composition that we're talking about there just then. That fatty acid, glycerol, it forms from dead food, and it's exact. And it's points like this with high heated fats that are oxidizable and glycerol and all of that, how that enters your liver. And the glycerol and the fatty acid in the stomach after it's been shut down because you ate the wrong food. And eventually that empties into the intestine and you've got that converted into glycerol 3P types of glycerol kinase, which is then oxidized into other molecule. And you're just looking at this labeled glycerol 3P types of rapid equilibriums that really can't be broken down. So look, you're just looking at fats that shouldn't be oxidized, but are, and then those sitting into spots where your body is and not properly functional after that. Why? Because it cannot be broken down. Because it was cooked. It lost its enzyme. Okay. So live food honest, it's one word, not two. Live food, it's one word, not two. It's a noun and it's not a pronoun. Because it's one word and it's defined honest. Look into this. And if you haven't, why not? What, because you're afraid that you just would have to let go flesh? Yeah, probably. It's not uncommon. Live food honest clears up a lot of the serious mycotoxin where the blood is and brain tissue, and all of that substance can get dissolved. Otherwise, these glycerol 3-phosphates as rapid equilibrium of that. And you've got dihydroacetone types of phosphate and the cell cytotoxic sorts of environment. Well, you really don't have to learn all the names of the cytotoxic environment. You just to see after it's dead, where did it go? What did it break down to? Can it? You're looking at a toxin. Okay. So if you don't add any more of that, wow, that's going to be good. Because mostly, probably, you've got a cystic fibrotic state, which means sticky mucus where your brain is and your pancreas and lung probably too. And so it's a very slow detox lack. Yes. Otherwise, and a capacity to really have cleared away all of that mycotoxin. So mycotoxin is like from rancid fats, bacon and eggs in the morning, no attention whatsoever to that leg blocking, clogging material. It's going to be the length of your life. And it's a long time connection to that dead food. And the Jubb method, looking at this research into mycotoxin and pancreatic disfiguredness afterward of its extracellular matrix. It's full of inflammatory stone. Don't you think you should flush that out? I'm pretty sure you should. The cytoplasm, where the meninges are of your brain, and all the mycotoxin that's there bridged from this gut-brain condition. Okay, it's a gut-brain axis, seriously compromised. And would you not consider healing that up if you really get rid of attention deficit hyperactive disorder? Yes, it heals up because it's what we're talking about. So do Jubb cell rejuvenation and the internal cytoplasm, you've got clean versus it having just a very low redox and low conductivity and low parts of hydrogen, and the terrain must be corrected. Otherwise, you've really got more a fermentive condition having gone on where that is. And so you're looking at cytoplasm, which is the fluid inside a cell, healing up. Otherwise, it's got metabolite where that is from flesh, heavy protein, heavy fat, and dead food diet. Did anybody in the movement there talk about the value of enzymes? No. Did you even have that as a subject in the index of the back of the book they wrote? No. Like the blood book type. Ridiculous. Off the chart. Totally can't help us. So far away from the truth. Get over it. So it's non-ecological inflammatory markers where there is, and it's a slow grow, benign sort of neoplasm typical, and you've got an equilibrium between these glycerol 3-phosphates and this dihydroxyacetone phosphate. It's vital where it's crossroad. You've got looking at where clearing away toxins has to be, otherwise you've got to stop the proper cell not having its proper respiration as it's aerobic glycolysis, and you've got to turn back on oxidative metabolism instead. It's critical. So it's dissolving through the life food and enzyme and Jubb cell rejuvenation product. And so all that connects to glycolysis, lipid synthesis, and energy shuttling between the cytoplasm and the mitochondria, and you get things healed up. So it's certain you could look at this. How come you haven't seen your blood under a microscope? Why didn't you get a second opinion? People who've got resource, they always get second opinions. And they have people professional more helping where something is. So otherwise, you've got toxic metabolite. Did anybody say anything about this? You've got dead food diet. Did anybody say anything about that? You've got a lot of money spent. For what purpose? Just to have some beans on a plate, flesh, which is just full of bacteria, and a lot of money spent on testing, see? Ooh, yeah, that's right. Did that help you? Generally not. Okay. So let's get to the bottom more so that you could understand honestly. Of course, we start out talking a little bit about xenoestrogens, and don't forget how fatty acid disruption is, where cytoplasm of the membrane is. You're not going to say that the lacteal ducts where things are made, where you've got blood being made, yet you've got lactic acid and things in excess, and you've got tissue where the brain is, like meningitis, and you've got benign meningeal types of neoplastic material there that's left. And is that cleared away? Life Food Enzyme has nutrition in it that can help you. And over some 40-odd years of observation, is that long enough? Did any of this which I'm sharing with you get crossed? No. I've been sure open to look to see if anything did, but most things confirm xenoestrogens cannot be metabolized properly and are toxic compounds that disrupt normal metabolism, metabolic function, including mitochondrial activity within your body. Okay? So let's look into this. Yes, you and I, xenoestrogens, we're just starting to talk about this. It blocks and impairs enzymatic production of adenosine triphosphate, ATP. So if you're altering the process of pyruvate and proven consequence where it's got a diversion of this dihydroxyacetone phosphate towards glycerol 3-phosphate, G3P, in the mitochondria. And so, is it going to function after that? No. Xenoestrogens are going to toxify metabolite to have seeded that where the body is. It's like putting sand into the camera. You're going to get it out. You put dust into a microscope. You're going to get it out. So when you've got xenoestrogen from all this packaged food, most of it has these molecules within it and mycotoxin. And so zearalenone is just one that's metabolized into a compound that's really toxic and carcinogenic, and that's mycotoxic compounds that's truly neoplastic, you see. So mitochondria, where energy metabolism is, you've got life-colloid organelle interior of your cell, like the mitochondria, and you've got lysosomes, you've got endoplasmic reticulum, a whole range of things there inside a cell, which is life-colloid, all made up out of double spore building blocks and cells. Where did that come from? A red blood corpuscle. The double spores of the red blood corpuscle have totipotency. Look into all of this by picking up some of these Bibles that which we've mentioned. So xenoestrogens really interfere where mitochondrial function is, and it leads to decreased adenosine triphosphate production that you would have ordinarily an increased generation of energy versus reactive oxygen species, see, which rusts, rots, and putrefies your body. And what happens to flesh and the intestine? So life-colloid organelle accumulation is seen. You've got xenoestrogens from all that flesh and egg and fish and bird flesh. And you've got lithophilic fat-soluble types of compound that accumulate in the adipose tissue. And over time, you've got the points kind of followed where you've got increased risks of chronic health effect, including metabolic neoplastic types of conditions. So Jump's method really is a random sample of convenience. It's based on a valid construct and context. Plus, other experts agree with me. So it's repeatable, it's reliable, it's face valid. You've got qualitative research versus quants running around. So you could have a proper road talk, of course, and it's whose talk walks the loudest, really. And so it's Jump's scientific method really is healing up these xenoestrogens to help clear neoplasm. So I know it's a lot what we've just come to, and in a nutshell, it would be one of the first realizations that I had in the late 70s, that you better start targeting and improving things so that you have remission from neoplasm. And I was really led to the conclusion that a valid, reliable condition has to be where flesh food would have been and lacked of enzyme and resistant type of relentless stopping of all of that toxin. You'd have to do it. Otherwise, it's really bad for you, okay? So never not a deep impaired oxidative phosphorylative condition exists if you have not corrected that. And so this is what is targeted on cell rejuvenation. So the past clinical empirical research evermore notes how estrogen-like metabolite reduced the coupling and oxidative phosphorylation and processes that link this, north negative transport chain to be able to make adenosine triphosphate. So you've got excessive consumption of high heat processed food combo, with fat and complex carbs, seriously, like a lump, a dead food diet, you see, and you've done it all your life. So it's multiple energy metabolism pathways. It's compounds as part of a broader class of chemical known as obsessogens, which interfere with your body's normal control over energy, balance, and fat storage. So research shows, of course, and suggesting to you that certain compounds are associated with this cooked flesh acts as an endocrine disruptor and affects its regulation. You've got these xenoestrogens that mimic natural estrogen that binds to receptors and alter the proper signaling. And you've got bacon and eggs, in the morning, and the fat and lack of any enzyme, everything enzyme resistant. You've got, coagulated protein, sugars all coagulated. You've got totally insoluble stovetop fried at the hospital. Wrong. It's a surfactant that's seriously deranged. You don't tell me that high temperature cooking doesn't do that. High temperature cooking methods at the hospital, grills, broils, fries. You've created specific compounds that are really toxic. You should not approach that stuff. It's lacked care. It's the corporate world. At the home, except now it's for profiting. So it's wrongful neglect where care is being, and it's linked to just what's followed. That's got no due diligence done whatsoever, because you've got metabolic disruption. Don't tell me that you don't. You do. And then all meningioma, where brain is, and pancreas inflammation, and giving the runs afterward, what you're doing. This is just a completely off-the-chart wrong approach. So gut microbiota sort of like disruptedness, where you could look into this. You can see studies that indicate where you've got high flesh, processed flesh, you've got that negatively altering all the gut lifecolloid. And the gut lifecolloid play a key role where energy metabolism is and your overall health. having been disrupted. So should you listen to these podcasts? Is this something which you could learn how to correct? Who could you talk to that you could get on track about these things? Looking at the dead food combo, it's certain, nothing natural. What about the pathways that normally would regulate and be regulated by estrogen naturally? Okay, including, of course, glucose metabolism, yes. Glucagon, yes. You've got to have that hormone to make sure you've got proper blood sugar, not insulin, and affecting glucose transport. It's engaging glycolysis where that is, rather than oxidative metabolism. So fatty acid metabolism in a disturbed sort of synthesis of oxidized, beta-oxidized fatty acid, you've got dead food, you see. You've got it leading to mitochondrial dysfunction. Stop eating before you sleep. Stop eating as soon as you wake up. What's going on there? You've got impaired mitochondrial respiratory chain components where you've got cellular energy production, usually, and of course, with like a female's lifespan, you've got xenoestrogens that's associated with disruption of the estrogen receptor, alpha and beta functioning, and of course, men too. So cooking makes all of that toxic, and it's the flesh which then ends up surviving, you see, going into DNA to accumulate there, and crest and inflammation of silica where the nucleus is, where the cell is. You've got hormones that aren't completely destroyed where the cooking is, and toxic via dope sort of surfactant and glyconeuramic acid, which is a molecule of death coming from that flesh. It's the molecule of death, no question about it. It's one of them. Consuming all of that flesh at the same time is it's so toxic. It's consuming that flesh that disrupts your hormonal balance and increases the production of estrogens by your body. It's adaptogenesis, which is an altering of the normal development where you've got regulated fat tissue, supposed to, otherwise, like your brown fat cells active at night, clear away toxin if it's cold enough, if you've emptied your stomach. Otherwise, it's cachexia, honest. It's the layering over the legs suddenly become ever more weakened and not able to be used. So it's dead wood, really, like dead food. It needs to be eliminated. It's to detox, and shouldn't you? And so these symptoms are starting to clear up, you see? And extraneous testing and all the day's stress worth of nothing. And did that heal? No. Did it distract? Yes. Was toxin administered? Was toxin administered? Was toxin administered? Yes. Oh, wow, you're kidding. It's like, yep. Or toxin was administered. It's like, yeah, but you've got too much toxin right now. Why should you have more toxin administered? This is going to be not right. Trust me, honest. Would you got something? No. Gut cell rejuvenation, don't tell me that's not scientific. Dead food makes estrogens. It makes these xenoestrogens. And foodstuffs that contain those xenoestrogens, like conventional meat, egg, fish, bird, mammal, flesh, insect. You're a carbaholic. You're a carbitarian, a starchaholic, as a gan of a vein. That's a bad food diet. Total, outright. Nothing come from flowers, basically, which life food does, part of the definition. So look and see and pass on what you can where this is. Life food really could help you. It's food that could favour and manage the exposure of those toxins. You've got cruciferous vegetable and broccoli and cabbage and cauliflower and things which got compound like the dual sort of methane types of molecules, which really help support a healthy estrogen metabolism, you see. So looking simply at giving you some fact, of course, you've got crucial, that can't be denied, of course. Joe's method scientifically really is a construct and context that's been given you here. You've got a list of xenoestrogens, really, that's not exhaustive, of course, constant exposure to those substances. Examples in everyday items, you've got xenoestrogens where fruit and vegetables are sprayed with pesticides in plastic water bottles, Tupperware, nail polish, makeup. You've got birth control, you've got quite a few drugs and things which have compounds in it which are heavy metals and what have you. You've got methyl benzylide camphorated molecules in sunscreen lotions and parabens, propylparaben and ethyl propylparaben, polyparabens, butylparabens, all cause problematic xenoestrogen-like activity. Benzo, phenene, like in sunscreen and things. Industrial products like plastics, bisphenol A, monomers for polycarbonate, plastic sort of epoxy resins, antioxidants, in plasticizers, phthalate, these things coming from bottled water and things. DEHP plasticizers for polyvinyl chlorinated compounds, polybrominated sort of biphenyl ethers, flame retardants in plastic and foam and building material and electronics, furnishing, motor vehicles, polychlorinated biphenyls, you see these PCBs. So PCBs sort of like, oh yeah, right, where homes are, where solvents are used, where cleaning fluids are used, where the air doesn't really circulate like it should. Do you have due diligence where that is? Or is it just doom? Food, ethicene, like FDNACs, red, and butylated hydroxy anisole, BHA, which is a food preservative. Hospital building supplies include where the air is. You've got preservatives, biphenyls, you've got electrical oil, lubricant, additives and paints. So the list goes on where that is. But look, putrefaction of all the flesh aggregate, fuse and differentiate into bacteria, mold and fungus, and it goes into your body. It's unknown at the moment. Like what we're talking about is you do a bit of a Google search most, you're not going to get anything accurate too much as any description whatsoever. Ignorance, of course, and the moment, and groupthink, misleading others, actual where circumstance is, and monopoly otherwise. So Google search, highly biased, of course, account where any information is. It's just really up to you to be able to search for things. But bacteria, mold, fungus, and yeast is all part of one cycle, and you're aggregating, fusing, differentiating all of that lifecolloid from the flesh and its rancid fat. And nothing can thrive much after that where the body is, and without proper source of nitrogen, doesn't grow. Without a proper source of nitrogen, it doesn't grow. So you don't have yeast and mold. Okay. So putrefaction of all that protein in flesh and anaerobic lifecolloid that come from it, the spore, the fungus, the mold, the bacteria, all thrive without oxygen. It all aggregates, fuses and differentiates into bacteria. That really is problematic. So who's giving you any explanation? I don't think you're getting anything much from Google, and looking under the microscope, not a narrative much, a lot of fake stuff where things are non-ecological lifecolloid that's found where the blood is. It's certain. And where did that come from? It's a work that you could be doing to correct everything. Otherwise, mold commonly seen where the blood is of flesh eaters, differentiates through this AFD process and pleomorphs into lifecolloid like Penicillium mucor, Cladosporum, alternarius, sporotrichium and things. Okay. You've got microorganisms that aggregate, fuse and differentiate and live where the intestine is excreting their mycotoxin, which is the waste product, into your body, and it starts to break it all down. So flesh breaks down, reverse differentiates into tissue, and the animal rots. Refrigerated flesh is Brachiocerix thermofascia. You've got just Lifecolloid that's just off the chart. Pseudomonas, you find it. Bacteria pleomorph into fungus, mold, and excrete mycotoxin where the intestine is. Lifecolloid organelle really could be seen where you've got bacterial vampirism, and you've got blood cells that's kind of like ghost cells, and you've got mold, fungus, and yeast in the blood. And did you have a good look at the whole picture or just a small bit of it? So the red blood corpuscle and double spore aggregate, fuse, and differentiate into mold. You could see in the blood E. coli, salmonella, and blood conductivity could be lacking. The cells might not be discrete but clumped and things that's like that. And cells could be pinched and, oxidized. So aggregating and fusing and differentiation is going on and not mitotic cell division at all. And where you ever have a lower negative redox, what are you going to do about that? It's going to not function. See, you're going to have mold, fungus, and yeast come out. So flesh, where dead food breaks down, it really is the explanation of how your flesh and gut and bacteria move from the digestive tract into the bloodstream and cause deadly seededness where the brain is. So egg protein pleomorphs into anaerobic oxygen-free, that means terrain, metabolizing sulfur and containing the amino that's in the egg, and it produces a hydrogen sulfide, which really stinks. So, flesh eaten and egg all break down into Lifecolloid that thrives and love nitrogen. They thrive and love nitrogen. Got to have your protein. So it's a major cause of error where you've been looking at things. How much protein is when you really are growing like you're a baby? You really need protein when you're growing. Because you're a baby, you need to grow. How much protein is in the dry breast milk of the mother? 5%. Okay. So major health organizations that classify food and processed food, especially flesh, and have carcinogenic type of compound like these nitrates. Nitrates are used in flesh preservation. And when this compound is exposed to high heat, it forms neoplastic condition, nitrosamines. So fertility, it can be helped in your blood, and synthetic Lifecolloid substances can be cleared away. But what happens where birds are injected and contaminated and accumulated synthetic Lifecolloid is in the environment? The Lifecolloid evolved, aggregate, fuse, and differentiate, and starting to come and plastic break down into this. And so what you're eating and the rock belies a surface where you've got an extract of oils, and looking at everything deeply, you could see what's found where your blood is, and it's causative of anesthetic types of sensation. So it slowly causes nerve tissue no longer to function, and so it causes the nerve anesthetic types of sensation. And well, you could imagine those things going on where erotic sensitive tissue is, loss of libido, and it's for sure. So a drop of water is a soak where a plant-based element is, like a little bit of tobacco. You can't find any artifact on the slide after that, including any mold. So it's sure antiseptic where it rids bacteria. It's antiseptic because it rids bacteria. It's antiseptic because it gets rid of mold. Your blood becomes more, antiseptic. Okay? So these are all natural pacifier, not antibiotics, natural pacifier. And it's very easy to be able to see these things broken down. Otherwise, drug synthetic sort of approach is just left behind. And dissolving bacteria where you've got also heavy metal artifact, graphene oxide and things needs to be dissolved. And why have you looked and seen these substances dissolved? Okay, good, because now you're on track. So like tobacco leaf, for instance, got a tiny bit of niacin where that is, and vitamin, and it contains extraordinary antiparasitic compound, antimicrobial compound, and it's antiseptic. And you use a little bit, don't use much. It's like a teaspoon, like I said, into 6 ounces of water. So the blood soaked where water is from a small bit of tobacco leaf, for instance, is so proactive where the stance is. I'm just giving you an example, okay, of what product could be. And if somebody's understanding this, did they develop a product that could help the blood? So what happens where synthetic Lifecolloid is really made, and bacterium that's synthetic like this, Escherichia coli or E. coli called Synth 57. It's engineered to build a body using only 57 condon. 64 is supposed to be, and so they just chose 57, because you can see that's synthetic, okay. So the recipe for life is written more with language that uses 64 condon, and when you're exposed to a triplet of nucleotides, what happens with that when you've only got 57? So testing sort of unnecessary and expensive, and it's offered often, but costing you a lot, and not really coming up with anything like an MRI to improve the clarity of an image. And what happens when you're using tracer element in that's really heavy metal. So cystic fibrotic conditions are totally contraindicated to using a heavy metal. Why? Because it can remain. Because it thickens the meninges of the brain. And because afterwards the galladium, the element, it has no biological function, zero, and past that it triggers nephrogenic sort of systematic sort of fibrosis, which is painful disease that you've got basic material not considered that's contaminated. And what about graphene oxide? How did that get into the blood? Is that because the screens are being used that made out of graphene? So it's a long-term known, of course, that heavy metal causing a thickening of the tissue where endothelial cells are. And did you get to have a look to see if any of that heavy metal was cleared away from the last times that you ever did that? No. Why not? Because you wouldn't want to keep doing it. It gets layered in there. So iatrogenic caused condition otherwise, and it corrected. You've got gadolinium, for instance, like gadolinium-based contrast agents, and they leave behind trace elements of the gadolinium. And somebody's got cystic fibrosis, that's kind of really dangerous to do where those people are. Most of the substances eliminated parent, but small amounts of gadolinium could be retained for months and several years. Looking at this, how could anyone say that's stable? It's a classified macrocyclic type of gadolinium ion, which is held more tightly with a cage and chemical structure. But does that just not get cleared away as well? And how stable is it? And so no studies typically really are done where the accumulatedness of all of those
colloidal toxins, which is unphysiological salts, which are put through IV and things, which is certainly not good for anybody with cystic fibrosis. So gadolinium and gadabutyl agents, all the same, accumulating where somebody's having these MRIs, for instance. So it's got to make you really wonder, is it too much of a risk for older beloved where somebody is to have more growth of thickened tissue, contrastedness? And when would it be the idea that you stop that? But like, when are you starting some other things that could really help and have a proper approach? So cystic fibrosis and mucus, and having a mucus diet, and what about moving more toward a mucusless diet? You see, you've got greater risks of retention otherwise of that linked repeated doses of compromised heavy metal compounds where drugs are being used, and in cystic fibrosis tissue and pancreas and the meninges of the brain and intestine, bronchial gland, it stains, and kidney, you see. So it makes a lot of money, and the sale, and nothing to stop or consider the beloved's condition honestly, and how MRI screening and gadolinium contrasting is, it could be very costly to where health is in your pocket. So it could make like $12,000 for somebody who sold that, $400 maybe for the IV hookup, and higher cost brand names. Nobody's going to say that a bias exists because it's prescribed more of a drug, and if you receive money, yes, from the pharmaceutical companies, it's tied to that. Don't tell me that that's not going on. We've got a lot of care where condition is supposed to be not toxic, but corporate medicine and iatrogenic cause conditions of patterns. So it's very dose-dependent relation, and normal doctors start by prescribing more drugs, and it's just sales, commission and things. Jump-cell rejuvenation really avoids all of that pushing medicatedness and toxic compound, because they're too much of a quick fix incentive where healthcare is, and you've really got repeated MRI testing right now going on, and no holdback much about having a thought about should you do that. It's a heavy metal gadolinium, which is a rare earth element that's used in the MRI imaging. And so if anybody complained, would the meninges just light up before you did the tracer because it already is toxified, and the last lot that you did, it didn't get cleaned up? How come nobody really looked? So meninges and meningioma could have a history of edema and considerations that we're talking about. And it's a potential risk for completed contrasted imaging to be just maybe relaxed on. All right. Coming to the completeness of our show today, pancreatitis and cystic fibrosis in the same hand, injectables where puncturing is, and the tissue, no control over where a needle is going. It's the bigger picture, okay? And an overload where things are seen, and symptoms where swelling of the IV side is and things like that, or pain and discomfort. It really is, you've got a Lifecolloid mat will come to wrap the program up, and it's a community of microorganisms, and of course spore, mold, fungus and yeast is as well. So Lifecolloid could be seen attached to the surface of the body and encase themselves where you've got protective types of slime like matrix conditions, and extracellular polymetric sorts of substances there, or between the cells and things, which really is something that should get cleared up, okay? So anyway, look, I hope you've enjoyed this show today. Looks like we've got some more material to go on to talk about, but we certainly have talked about this life colloidal mat and a glycol packing that's around your cells, and everything being proper in its ecology, that you're focused on the terrain that the cells exist within. You correct the terrain, heal the terrain, and you're healing the cells. And that's our message today. Anyway, Lukey, hope everybody's having a wonderful day as you've been listening to this, and we'll look forward to catching up to you in a future podcast. Love you, mate.